Well, Browns fans, another week, another loss, unfortunately, for the Cleveland Browns. They fall to 1-5 on the season, 20-16. The final score today from Lincoln Financial Field behind me here as the disastrous start gets even more disastrous in a lot of ways, Anthony. A lot of different things to talk about. I do want to remind you guys to head on over to si.com/NFL/Browns. All kinds of coverage from during the game, after the game, up there. There'll be more to come as well, so stay locked in over there. But we appreciate you jumping in with us here for a little bit to recap what we saw today, which was obviously, as I said, another Browns loss. I mean, Anthony, it seems just like each week that passes, we're having a lot of the same conversations about the problems with this team, and just I don't know what the answer is at this point in terms of trying to figure out like how they fix these things. And I thought it was interesting, like Deshaun Watson was asked after the game about the pre-snap penalties, and he was asked directly, like, what do you guys have to do during practice to fix those things and make that something that doesn't happen anymore? And he kind of stood there for like a good 20 seconds, just not saying anything, and then kind of started to answer the question. Like, even he is stumped in terms of what they have to do differently because the same problems just continue to bite this team in the ass.
It's really it's wild to watch because it's like nothing is changing. Like they lost 20-16 today, just like they did a couple weeks ago, and in similar fashion too. Like offense struggles throughout the first half, defense keeps them in. Defense makes a big play, offense continues to just kind of let you down, and you get a little bit of a spark. Like this was a carbon copy of the Raiders game from a few weeks back, where it was like, hey, looks like they're playing a little bit better. And then they're just not at some point. You know, it's like really, really, really frustrating to just watch and be like, the whole game was like, I know how I've seen this movie. I know how this one's going to end. And it ended exactly how we expected, with another disappointing loss in a year that's been just totally disappointing to this point.
Yeah, I think one of the more frustrating moments in this game came in the late in the fourth quarter. There's about 3 to 4 minutes left. Browns get down to the 3 of the Eagles with a chance to tie the game. They were down just 7 points. It was 20-13, and once again, the self-inflicted wounds are a major problem for this team. You get a false start, a pass to David Njoku that I think was incomplete. And then they're setting up to go for it on fourth down to try to breathe some life into this team a little bit and get you a touchdown and kind of break this touchdown streak that they have.
Jeez.
And try to tie the game up. And it's another false start that pushes you back, and then Kevin Stefanski decides he's going to kick the field goal instead, which I know that decision is controversial in its own right. I think people are talking about that on social media right now. But like, it's just every time, man. Every time it seems like there's something going right with this offense, or they have some momentum. They do something stupid, and it's the correctable things. It continues to be like guys just having to figure it out and play better, like take some initiative themselves to make the right decisions and not have these pre-snap penalties. I give a lot of the guys in the locker room credit because they continue to just support each other, and they say they don't think there's going to be any problems in this locker room after another loss. But like, man, how do you not get frustrated when it's the same exact conversation every single week and it just doesn't ever correct itself?
It was just like so deflating, that drive you talk about, because like for the first time ever, you're like, all right, we're down a touchdown, and this offense with the way this year's been feels like a mountain to climb, right? And they start out the drive and they get a huge completion to Jerry Jeudy on a play where something we haven't seen in a long time, right? Play action, you get a little crosser action. Deshaun throws it with a touch of anticipation. Open guy hits him in the face. Max turns and gets up the field, and you're like, yes, here we go. And then they start running the football. They ran it relatively good today. Pierre Strong, I thought was pretty impressive. Finished the day 8 carries for 43 yards, averaging 5.4 yards a pop. Deontay Foreman on the same hand ran it 10 times for 31 yards. Maybe not as much from a per average standpoint, but he looked the part running the football. And the Browns averaged the whole day 4 yards a carry, which is pretty solid. So they start running the ball. Then you get into the red area, and you're like, all right, awesome, we're good in the red area. We're not down there much, but when we get down there, we do score. Then they try to get it to David, and you're like, yes, he could break a tackle. He doesn't. But you get it down there and you're on the 3-yard line, like punch the thing in the end zone. Like, don't go the wrong direction. Like, that's just, it was so deflating. And yeah, like, I guess he could have still gone for it on that fourth down, but it's like, why? Like, we're at the 10-yard line, things are going bad. If we don't get it, it's over anyway.
Yeah.
But it's just like, man, like that one specifically was like same old Brown. Like, I hate saying that, but it was same old Browns in that scenario.
Well, and the frustrating thing about that moment too is like Stefanski, I give him some props for at least having the effort or trying to go for it there. And I think it was a key situation where you do try to do that. But in the same breath, like this offense you need to breathe some life into it. And I think he's trying to do that. But at the same time, man, it's like you take a chance and then they make the decision harder for you because they back you up with another false start penalty. And I understand, like, this team has to get asked the question, like, how do you correct something like that that's a constant issue for this team? It really is just like guys playing, like not making the dumb mistakes. I mean, and that's the same themes that you're getting from like Joe Bitonio, Myles Garrett, others. Like guys just have to not in those moments make those errors where you're moving early. Like it's as simple as that. Yeah. So I kind of understand why Deshaun had a long pause, because I don't know what the answer is either. If you guys have talked about it enough at this point that you figure it should be getting through, and it's just not getting through. And maybe that comes back to the coach, and it's a reflection on him in terms of like not getting his guys prepared or fixing these things. But something's got to change, man, because this offense continues to just be a slog. They have no answers. They can't even score a touchdown. They've now gone, Anthony, they are 0 for 29. Yeah. On their last 29 drives, they have not scored a touchdown. Like, that is unheard of stuff that this Browns offense is doing right now. On top of the terrible third down percentage, they were 3 of 12 today, and it took them until I think they were 0 for 26 on third down until late in the third quarter. They finally converted one. It was like the second to last play before the third quarter. And then they converted a second one on that same drive, start of the fourth quarter. So it's the same exact things. They can't keep drives going, can't punch it in, self-inflicted wounds. And we're left here looking up at the scoreboard like, man, you only lost 20-16. How can you not score 20 points? They didn't score 20 points again.
And in Spence, they were given 7 points from the defense, who, again, kept you in another game. So they really only scored 9 points. And it's like, geez, oh, man. And they had a missed field goal on a drive that I know we're going to talk about. And maybe now's the right time to get to it, because that was equally dumb, too. And while the guys out in the field are having some of those stupid penalties and those procedural type penalties, why are we running a jet sweep to Cedric Tillman on fourth down on a drive that you're coming out of half and you look good? You're completing passes down the field. Deshaun was starting to kind of heat it up just a little bit, whatever heating it up means for him at this point. But it was starting to start to get a little bit better, and you have a fourth down opportunity. If you're going to go for it, I'm totally with it. Freaking QB sneaking, it's 4th and 1. Just go right at the middle. If you get it, and if you get stuffed, whatever. But don't go jet sweep to an all-pro guy who's going to be a Hall of Famer one day.
I want to get back to that the fourth down play with the QB sneak it with Jameis, because that kind of, I think, is into a larger conversation about play calling and decision making. But the end around you talked about, well, hold on, I'll say one more thing too. Another moment in this game, second quarter, 5:25 to play. Deontay Foreman takes the ball down to the Eagles 16 on a big run play. He picked up, I want to say, 18 yards or something like that. It was a big play. And we talked pregame about changes with this offense, things that were going to look different. You could tell they were running the ball a lot more, or trying to make that more of a thing. And they were doing it from under center, which I think was a welcome sight as well, to see them actually go back to sort of the Stefanski way of doing things and take the ball off from under center and try to run it. And it worked. They were very effective that way. But then you get a holding call that brings that one back. That one was questionable. It was on Swain, the tight end. And I know it was a little ticky-tack and people had a problem with it at home, but it's just another example of the penalty shooting your foot. And then we get to the end around play. It was third down in the third quarter, 3rd and 1, with I think 11:20 to go. Again, there's a common theme here that the offense did, I think, show some life in the second half, much like the Raiders game, where it seemed like they were actually able to do some things, Deshaun included. And then you have a play like that where Stefanski decides to run an end-around sort of jet sweep type play with Cedric Tillman, gets stuffed for -5. Then you got to kick the field goal, and Dustin Hopkins misses the field goal, and that puts you behind the 8 ball. There was a place where you left points on the table yet again because of a stupid play call. Even the coach isn't beyond reproach when it comes to some of the self-inflicted wounds and just goofy things that are going on with this team right now. But that was another disastrous scenario for this team.
Yeah, and it's just like one thing after another, after another, after another, and like the positives, I guess, from today, and something that I was looking forward to was like you mentioned a little. I thought it was going to be more dramatic than what it was, but I like that they got under center and started running and throwing the ball from under center, because if you look across the league, there's statistics everywhere that say the most efficient football play right now, the most efficient run is an under center run on first down, and the most efficient pass is a play action pass. And if the Browns from under center, and the Browns
well, and let's face it, like that's Kevin Stefanski's offense.
Yes,
it's very West Coast. And they spent so much time trying to revamp this offense for Deshaun, and we've had conversations about whether or not he can play Stefanski's system or not. But like at this point, you got to do something differently, because what you were doing before wasn't working. The blended offense was a disaster.
Yeah,
and it still kind of is.
And it's still, and like we said, we talked about in the offseason, like how's this marriage between Ken Dorsey's like grip it and rip it kind of offense to Kevin Stefanski's under center, methodical, everything connected type of offense. And there is none. It's oil and water right now. And it's been that way for 6 weeks. That's the other problem. We're 6 weeks into this thing, and the same problems that are happening on October 13th were happening on August 1st when you guys were at the Greenbrier, because like the same stuff for the last 3 months, and we still have 3 months left of this season to kind of fix stuff. And it's like, where do you kind of go from here? I don't know. The guys have a good attitude to it, but there's a lot of question marks still for this team. Yeah,
and again, I'll go back to Stefanski, because he did mention that the sweep play was on him. He took the blame for it. I saw that quote. He said it was a bad play call, and that's on him. And that's fine. But again, like, his decision-making hasn't been superb the last couple of weeks either. There have been some things that are on coaching, and you can certainly question, how this has all gone from the standpoint of like what he's tried to accomplish with Deshaun Watson as his quarterback under center, as he continues to stick with him, which was another thing he brought up after the game in terms of, I'm not changing quarterbacks. What I found interesting about this matchup, Anthony, though, was you're talking about an Eagles team that every single thing that goes wrong, it's fire Nick Sirianni. Juxtaposed to that, I'm not saying Kevin Stefanski is going to get fired, but fans are already clamoring for that on social media, from what I can understand. And usually when there's a standoff between a quarterback and a coach, the quarterback wins. Mm-hmm. I don't know that they just gave out an extension to Kevin Stefanski just to fire him at the end of the season, but if the mistakes continue from his standpoint, and if the offense doesn't figure itself out, I don't know who else there is to blame when you get to the end of the season, because what are they going to do? Fire Ken Dorsey, who you just brought in? Like, you already tried to scapegoat the offensive coordinator. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, and I don't think it should happen, because I do think Kevin Stefanski, in the grand scheme of things, is a good coach and a good offensive mind. Mm-hmm. But this year, like last year, there was moments where he felt like he was in his bag. This year, I don't think that's been the case. The fourth down, you bring in Jameis Winston to QB sneak. They have tried to do the alternate version of that play where they pitch it out to the left or hand it off with the guy kind of coming across multiple times. And teams are now picking up on the fact that they're trying to do that, and they're not going to QB sneak it, and they're stuffing it every time. They tried it again. They tried it last week, I think. And the only time it worked was against the Jaguars. We thought it was an awesome play, and he's gone back to that over and over again and hasn't snuck it. And so teams are just biting on that. It's all very infuriating, and I do think Kevin Stefanski's part of this equation as to why the offense is struggling.
Yeah, and like you said, like the Browns are in one hell of a sticky situation, because somebody is going to have to be removed from this equation, and it's going to be weird either way, whether it is taking the quarterback out and then you're stuck with like a 90 million dead cap situation over the next 2 years, or it is taking the head coach out, who is a 2-time head coach of the year, has had offenses rolling, taken this team to the playoffs twice, had Jacoby Brissett leading the top 10 offense in all of the NFL, had Joe Flacco do it, like all these things, or it's the new OC who you hired at the beginning of the season to kind of correct all this stuff. Whatever it is, it's going to be weird. It's going to be uncomfortable. And there's no, well, in my opinion, there's one right answer, but like, I don't know. Like, how do you have so much money invested in the quarterback? Once you go away from him, it's done, and you better be good to eat all that money and reset legitimately, Spence. Like, the second they do that, it's like fire sale, get everybody out, because you're going back to a backup quarterback. You're going down. You're going to have to kind of scrap it together for the next 2 years until the contract's off your books.
Sorry, I keep hitting the stupid cord, and it messes up my camera. Don't do that. Okay. No, so it's interesting as we get into the discussion about Stefanski versus Deshaun, because I did think I honestly think your comparison to the Raiders game was pretty much perfect. Like this one had a very similar feel where you had a chance. It was never like the second half. It was never you were never with further than a score away or one possession away from the Eagles, and you had your opportunities and you just didn't make it happen. Deshaun actually put together, I thought, a pretty decent second half. If you're looking for some sort of silver line to hang on, 11 to 12, 122 yards in the second half, sort of reminiscent of that Ravens second half, with the difference being, of course, that they won the game. I believe he threw a touchdown in that game as well in the second half, so that was obviously a big difference. But yeah, like this is the point we're at, though. It's like we're trying to grasp at straws for things that we can feel good about with this offense and with Deshaun. And even though I say that stat line, and it seemed like he played slightly better in the second half, and the offense played as a whole, I think, slightly better, and then just shot themselves in the foot at the wrong times, I still can point to a number of other moments where he didn't look very good, or he sailed a pass, or he dirted a ball, or he missed a guy over the middle. It's, again, the same conversation, man. Broken record. It's the same problems that have plagued this team through the first 5 weeks, plagued them in week 6, and I don't know that they have all the answers to fix them.
Dude, they've only outscored to this point, just like with the afternoon games being just past halftime or just before halftime. They've only outscored the Cardinals, who scored 13 points today. Out of every team who's played, there's 2 more games left, and they already have. There's 2. Like the Panthers are going to outscore them today. Like, this is a horrible offense, and when we do, we get all excited. It's funny. I caught myself like getting all pumped up when Jerry Jeudy had that catch, and I was like, wait a second. Every other offense does this on every single drive, like, and not just once a game, like every single drive. It's just so bad, and there's no there's no hope for this season for sure, but there's no hope for this iteration. Like, going through just today's game, I had it pulled up just a second ago before I stepped out of it. But this is your receiving core. So the receiving core you're really excited about. Amari Cooper, 4 catches for 42. Jerry Jeudy, 1 catch on 3 targets for 35. Pierre Strong, 2 for 35. Njoku, 5 for 31 on 7 targets. Deontay Foreman, 2 for 16. Elijah Moore, 1 for 3. Like, these guys are only getting a couple targets. They can't catch everything because Deshaun's not very accurate. And when they do get an opportunity, Amari Cooper, great example, first drive of the game. They have a nice play drawn up on 3rd down, and it's 3rd and 3, and it was like easy pass, like a 10-yard ball, and it missed Amari by 2 yards over his head, and he had to jump for it. And it was the same play Nick Harris got hurt on, which we probably don't have time for the injury discussion, but it just is like, man, the quarterback is playing so bad. And when that's the position that's playing bad, it doesn't matter if you have the 85 Bears or the 2023 Browns defense. Like, it doesn't matter. You're going to be hamstrung in every single game.
It shouldn't be hard for an offense to put up 20 points in 2024.
No, 21 points. That's 21 points. You win the football game today. You beat the Eagles, who are struggling themselves. You got Nick Sirianni talking smack to the crowd after he beats the worst team in the NFL by 4 points today. Like, they're not in good shape. This was a great opportunity to go steal one, and you just didn't. You just didn't, man.
Yeah. And that's why, like, even though we have the note that Deshaun played better in the second half, I don't know that people find a lot of solace in that, because they're just so frustrated with how the offense overall still looked, and the fact that they've gone 29 consecutive series without scoring a touchdown. And those things are going to be the glaring things that people take away from this one. It's also unfortunate you rattled off some of the numbers there, Anthony. Rodney McLeod, if you take Deshaun Watson out of the equation, because obviously he has the most touchdowns on this team because he passes and he's rushed for one as well. But if you take him out of the equation, Rodney McLeod is tied for the most touchdowns on this team with Amari Cooper, who had 2 in one game against the Giants and hasn't scored since. Rodney McLeod has 2 since then. He had one in the Raiders game on a scoop and score. He had the scoop and score play today on the blocked field goal, which, by the way, maybe the one moment that people can look back on from this game and be like, man, that was cool, was the Myles Garrett doing what Myles Garrett does, jumping over the line of scrimmage again on a field goal, blocking the kick, which paves the way for Rodney McLeod to take that one back. And at that moment, too, like, they seized momentum from the Eagles, and then they did nothing with it. That's the thing that stinks. But obviously, it's telling when we're talking about a defensive player and a special teams player, Rodney McLeod, having the highest touchdown total for anybody other than the quarterback.
It's disgusting. It's a hilarious stat, first of all, and it's one you're going to see. If you haven't seen it yet, and this is the first time you're hearing it, you're going to see it a lot tomorrow because it's going to get onto every show. It'll get on to Get Up tomorrow. It'll be on McAfee. Like, it'll be on everything because it's a hilarious stat for sure. But like, that's going to be, that was a Colts-esque play from Myles Garrett from last year. Like, that was his signature play in last year's season when he was the Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And the one he did today is going to be totally forgotten about because it was just on a BS type of a day for the entire team. And it's just going to fall to the wayside. It's just going to be another loss for the Browns where it was like, hey, Myles Garrett, it just made another otherworldly play and it meant nothing for us.
Yeah, it was disappointing. And they needed to take more advantage of the momentum there. And you thought coming out of this.
Okay, I'll get off. This is the last. I'll relax.
No, you're good.
I'll relax here in a little bit. But you talk about the momentum. You go right into half, right? And it's like, okay, we're tied up. You come out, and that's the
force a 3 and out. Yeah,
you come out, you put a drive together, and then you go for it with the end around thing, and then you miss the field goal. And it's like everything good you had rolling. At that point, everyone was thinking like, okay, we can win this thing. Like there's definitely a path here. And then you miss the field goal, and then it's like same old Browns, dude. Like here we go.
Yeah.
We're back to normal.
You had a chance to take the lead, and it didn't happen there. And a lot of that is again falls on the conversations are all connected because again it just falls on the stupid end around play to Cedric Tillman, which made no sense. But and I do think because we haven't talked about the defense at all, but along the lines of that special teams play that kind of breathed some life into this team in general. I thought the defense, were they perfect? No. The touchdown to Devonta Smith in the fourth quarter, not great. Greg Newsome kind of got caught up it was a mesh concept, and he got caught up kind of in the wash in the middle of the field. Oh, yeah. And, he broke free for an easy touchdown. So, but that happens. I thought the other one, A.J. Brown's just a freak of nature. And I know people are looking and saying MJ Emerson got mossed on again. He has had a bad year. But in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't terrible coverage. And the thing is, though, the defense still, it was very much bend but don't break. They held them to field goals. They largely kept them out of the end zone. They forced some 3 and outs at timely moments. They gave you the one score on special teams. And once again, because this offense is just that inept, it meant nothing.
And Spence, think about it. Here we go. Saquon Barkley came into today averaging 6 yards a carry over the course of the first 6 weeks. They had a bye week, so he was averaging 6 yards over their first 4 games of the season. Today, he was 18 carries for 47 yards. It's 2.6 yards a pop. Yeah, sign me up. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. That's good.
If you had told us that before the game, we would have thought the Browns maybe won. Maybe.
Because the Browns defense, if they can do that, you can think that you're going to hold them. You hold, you hold Jalen Hurts. You don't hold him, but 264 yards passing with that one big one to Devonta Smith for 45 yards. But it was a good play there. Good call by them. You're going to give up points. If you give up 20 points in the NFL, you should have a chance to win the football game. But on the flip side, your offense just is leaving you out to dry.
Yeah, it was a mess, very much so. Now, the one saving grace, perhaps, and this is something that maybe is a timely thing by the Browns, given where the season has gone. But next week, when we're back in Cleveland at Huntington Bank Field, Nick Chubb is going to walk out of that tunnel for the first time since going down with that gruesome knee injury in Pittsburgh in week 2 of last season. Again, something to maybe get the fans excited at a point in the year where things obviously have been terrible. But I maintain there were signs today. There were signs today that the run game can be effective and that they can find some things if they maybe go back under center and run it more like Stefanski likes to run it. But largely, I'm not banking on Nick Chubb being the season savior. I think this offense is just beyond saving by any one player inserting into it. It's going to take a lot of people to make this thing right if they're going to have any sort of success as the season goes on. But obviously, the idea of Nick Chubb being back out there should be a boost for this team, and he can sometimes mask some of the deficiencies on the offensive line because he's that good. But I think that's more of a symbolic moment than a season-saving moment for the team.
Yeah, no question. Nick Chubb is awesome. He's one of my favorite players of all time. I think on my Mount Rushmore, 2 guys that are on it, Jarvis Landry for sure, and Nick Chubb, absolutely. I don't think he changes the outlook for this team, just like you said. I think he keeps people coming to the games. I think that stadium's packed on Sunday because everyone's excited to see 24 run or at least get announced from the tunnel, and then they're going to leave because, the fans are upset. They're pissed off. but getting 24 back, I think, will at least, breathe at least a little bit of excitement into this team. And hopefully it does for the players. Miles even said it. Miles was like, yeah, it'll be an emotional boost for us. He said, everyone in Cleveland Brown State, or excuse me, what is it now? Huntington Bank Field. I went Cleveland Browns, the First Energy, to Huntington Bank, but people will be excited to see him. People will certainly be excited to see him. We'll see if it's enough an emotional boost to compete with Cincinnati, but we'll see. I don't think it's going to make that much of an impact, but maybe it does.
Yeah, maybe the emotional boost is enough to have that sort of impact on this team. Nothing else has worked in terms of conversations, player-only meetings, motivation of any sort of,
my reverse jinxes on.
Nothing else has worked. So maybe Nick Chubb is the secret elixir to solving all this offense's problems, but I just don't see it that way. I think it's beyond just anything Nick Chubb's going to be able to save, even if he does add a nice little spark to the offense, and hopefully the touchdown streak or the non-touchdown streak ends. But yeah, and I'll say this, like the one thing that the team kind of keeps holding on to is this idea that they have all their division games in front of them. They still have a ton of AFC games in front of them. That's great. I hope that they're right about what that all means and that they can make the most of those. But I'm not sitting here holding my breath expecting much to change, even when those games come around. Like, it's an easy thing to hang on to right now and use as kind of like the I don't know, some sort of idol that you're looking to is like, hey, it's okay. This is the one thing we can bank on, is this idea that we still have a lot of division games. We still have all of our division games, and we still have a lot of AFC games to play. But that's fine. But you got to show up that next week and start winning these games, because in the grand scheme of things, like, you're 1-5, your season's pretty much on the brink already. I guess if you ran the table, won the rest of your games, or you won the AFC, you won the division somehow, like, that would change it. But that's a tall task for a team that continues 6 weeks in to have an assortment of problems that it's not just something you can fix one of these things and it's all better overnight. It's going to take a lot more time, it looks like, and that's concerning that you're 6 weeks in with still all these same problems.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it keeps the guys showing up to work. That's what it is, I guess, in my opinion, because really your only chance to make anything happen is if you go 10-1 or 11-0, and that's. Maybe it does happen. Maybe that is. Maybe that does happen. Maybe today's the start of the. I
mean, if you get to 10 wins, that's fine. But like you said, to get to 10 wins,
you got to go 9. You have to win 9.
You have to win 9. Yeah, you have to win 9 games the rest of the way. And your margin of error is very, very thin. You can maybe lose 2 and still have a chance, maybe 3 and still have a chance, just depending on how things played out. But I mean, you have made your margin for error basically 0 the rest of the way.
Oh, and by the way, you still have the Chiefs on the schedule. You still got the Ravens twice. You still got the Steelers who
always give you fits.
Yeah. Well, and they're doing their normal Steelers.
The Broncos are playing better football than we thought initially.
Chargers, yeah, good luck beating the Chargers, who are just going to be tougher and more disciplined than you. Right from the start. It's a hard outlook right now.
All right, guys. We appreciate you jumping on in with us for the post-game conversation. We hate that it has to be under these circumstances with more of the same questions and not so many answers on how the Browns can fix this thing and right this ship. Again, I did think overall there was some promise from the offense, but it continues to be a struggle. They continue to not be able to punch it in to the end zone. And unless you do that in this league, you're never going to be able to win football games. So the struggles continue. You can read all about it over at Cleveland Browns on SI or si.com/NFL/Browns. We'll also have more content like this up at the Cleveland Browns on SI YouTube channel. I know Megs has been working hard. He already has Myles Garrett's post-game presser up there, Deshaun's, Coach Stefanski's, and there'll be a few others as well from the locker room that you can check out if you want to see what guys were talking about after the game. But we'll also have you covered with more content over, again, at Cleveland Browns on SI or si.com/NFL/Browns. So keep it locked over there. And throughout the week, Kevin Stefanski will give his post-mortem press conference tomorrow. And then we'll be off and running for another week as we get ready for week 7 in the NFL. And I don't think anybody thought the Browns season would feel like it was over at this point, but here we are. Guys, thank you so much again. Keep on following along for all your Cleveland Browns coverage with the Cleveland Browns on SI.